This is not a topic I was keen to cover, but misinformation and lies are getting out of hand, so I'm going to address, as briefly as I can, who the Khazars are, how they relate to Judaism and Ashkenazim, and why raising this matter in the context of Israel, or calling Jews Khazars, is as racist as what Zionists have done in Palestine. Such things don't belong on our side of this argument. You cannot defeat a racist regime with racist rhetoric. Let's start with the basics. The Khazars were Turks, as in peoples from Central Asia. You may be more familiar with the peoples of Turkey, many of whose ancestors came from Central Asia, but much genetic and cultural inheritance of modern Turkey is found in previous Anatolian populations. Like the Khazars, some Oghuz Turks migrated into Anatolia and established confederacies with other populations, but quite unlike the Khazars, what happened there resulted in a long-lasting empire and finally a nation-state. The Khazars instead went extinct. This is not to say they weren't important in their day. Theirs was, in fact, one of the longest-lasting states of the steppe region, about 300 years. But like most Turkic and Mongolic states, it struggled to transition to a settled bureaucratic state and only worked as a relatively loose and fluid confederation of tribes. Turks were originally located along the northern Chinese borderlands, but large-scale Turkic migration began in the 5th century and continued for more than 600 years, permanently altering the demography of Central Asia, South Asia, the Caucasus, and the Middle East. The name Khazar is etymologically related both to the Kazakhs of Central Asia and the Cossacks of Ukraine and Russia. And originally, the Khazars were part of a large amorphous entity that replaced Hun supremacy in Western Asia, though they quickly established their independence. The ruling family of the Khazars seems to have been part of the Ashina, a royal clan of Turks, and the lifestyle both of the court and the Khazar population as a whole was semi-nomadic, moving across the steppe with their herds and their round skin-covered yurts. From about 630, the Khazar leader assumed the title of Khagan and ruled a vast territory stretching from Kievan Rus in the west to Volga, Bulgaria in the east and south through the Caucasus down to Azerbaijan. It is a huge mistake, though, to think of them as a monolithic people, when in fact their confederacy was made of countless cultures, from Alans to Bulgars, Huns to Iranians, Greeks to Slavs to Finno-Ugric peoples. Early on, they fought the Arabs, who sought to extend their conquests up to the Caucasus. Early Arab victories led to one Khagan disingenuously adopting Islam and a subordinate position to the Caliphate, but war soon resumed. And the Khazars ultimately claimed control over the entire North Caucasus region, while the Arabs held Georgia and Armenia to the south. Derbent, sometimes called Darbend, along the Caspian Sea, became the main border town separating these empires, and Khazar power stopped the spread of Islam and Arab rule into Eastern Europe. The collapse of the Umayyads altered the balance of power. The Abbasid Caliphate was far less interested in, or capable of, military conquest and settled in to rule large swathes of the Middle East. The Roman Empire, sometimes called in this period Byzantine, remained powerful and controlled the western edges of the Middle East and the southern Balkans. The Khazars were thus a bulwark to the north, preventing either power from dominating the early medieval world. It is in this context that Khazar Judaism shows up. The Romans of the West were officially Christian, and were the Khazars to adopt Christianity, as the Rus had done, it would have subordinated them to the will of Constantinople. Likewise, the Abbasids to the east were officially Muslim, and adopting Islam, as the Iranians were doing, would have subordinated the Khaganate to the will of Baghdad. But monotheism had been waxing for many centuries, and the Tengri shamanism of the Turks could not hold out. Other Turkic peoples, like the Uyghurs, had chosen Manichaeism as their monotheism, but this put them into sharper conflict with both Christians and with China, as its declared universality and proselytizing nature was a threat to their power. Judaism had the advantage of being both ancestral to Christianity and Islam, hence could not be seen as a newer heresy, and being essentially tribal, and thus could not threaten to convert large numbers of people. And while it was in the interest of the Khazar Khaganate to choose a third option to maintain full political independence, it was not in their interest to antagonize either of their large, powerful neighbors to the south. The Romans had, in fact, been quite friendly to the Khazars and had built a fort for them at Sarkel to protect their western marches. This site is now underwater due to a dam built under Stalin. Their main capital, Atil, was located at the northern edge of the Caspian Sea, which required good relations with the Muslims too. By all accounts, the Khazar state was not only multi-ethnic but multi-confessional, with many religions practiced within its borders and an official policy of religious tolerance for all, including the pagans. Atil had 7 judges to rule on legal matters, 2 each for Jews, Christians, and Muslims, and 1 collectively for the Slavic, Norse, and Turkic pagans. It is this tolerance that attracted substantial numbers of Jewish migrants from the Eastern Roman Empire, who found the pro-Christian policies of the Caesars frequently oppressive. These migrants brought knowledge of Judaism into the Khazar court and offered a tempting way to appease the desire of their imperial neighbors to see an end to pagan rule without adopting one of the religions that would subordinate them to a foreign crown. And so, sometime around the year 740, the Khagan Bulan converted to Judaism. We cannot know the extent to which the people as a whole adopted this faith, but it appears to be quite limited, either to the ruling elite alone or to them and the rest of the court population, but most of Khazaria did not practice Judaism. Throughout the state's existence, we know all the other religions of the day were observed. Our sources, in fact, describe the main areas of Khazaria as mainly Muslim, while the ruling Jewish elite remained nomadic. This is one of the chief reasons their conversion had little long-term cultural or demographic impact, but it presents an interesting political curiosity for the era, complete with imitation dirham coins that replace the Muslim affirmation with a Jewish one. There is no God but God, and Moses is his messenger. The reason this comes up a lot these days is a desire in some circles to delegitimize Ashkenazi Judaism, suggesting Europe's Jews have no connection to the ancient Levant and Palestine. This is doubly false. First, converts are considered ethnic Jews, as Judaism is a tribal faith and continually adopts people into it. This is why Chinese Jews look Chinese and Ethiopian Jews look Ethiopian. And second, we know a great many Jews moved up to Khazaria from the Levant and the Southern Caucasus, the Balkans, Greece, and Italy. These Jews, like the ancestors of other European Jewish populations, have an ultimately Levantine physical origin. This is borne out by genetic studies of European Jews, each population of which contains a variable amount of Levantine DNA. Meanwhile, the only genetic study purporting to give a Khazar origin to the Ashkenazim had no actual Khazar DNA in its sample pool. One reason for this is that when their steppe empire collapsed, the peoples formerly under Khazar rule assimilated into the surrounding cultures and polities. Since most of the population was not Jewish or even Khazar Turkic, this is hardly difficult or surprising. But what of those who were Jewish? There are 2 possibilities for them: that they converted to another faith, which is likely the majority answer, or that they assimilated into other Jewish community. Many people bristle at the mention of Jews adopting another faith, but that has happened repeatedly through history. Jews are, in fact, a significant part of the ancestry of Palestinian Christians and Muslims today. And since Judaism did not dig deep roots in the area, as the Khazar elite did not comprise an urban civilization, it makes the most sense. Any that were attached to the faith and wished to retain it, though, could have assimilated into the Persian-speaking Bukharan Jews of Central Asia or the Yiddish-speaking Ashkenazi Jews of Eastern Europe. In neither case can this have been common or in substantial number, though, as neither language took in Turkic linguistic influence at that time. Yiddish, in fact, has precisely 0 Turkic loanwords. If a bunch of Khazar Jews had moved into their communities in noticeable quantity, at least some cultural trace should have been left. Yet all we find among Ashkenazim are European and Levantine cultural markers. The Ashkenazim, for anyone confused by basic Jewish history, have their origin far to the west along the Rhine River Valley in western Germany. Their ancestors had migrated north from the Mediterranean and to escape persecution, and lived happily there until the pogroms of the Crusader era. Migrations eastward then brought their culture to Poland, Lithuania, Russia, and Ukraine. Yiddish, it should be recalled, is a Germanic language related to medieval High German. In short, when TikTokers and Instagrammers go around suggesting Ukrainian Jews are actually Khazar Turks, they're ignoring history, biology, linguistics, and many other bodies of evidence. There were many Slavs and other peoples who intermarried into Ashkenazi groups, giving them a distinct genetic flavor, yes, but they are Jews, ethnically, culturally, and historically, and not a lost Turkic tribe. Hope this has been helpful.